Well, Hurricane Maria destroyed much of Puerto Rico's economy, but the storm has brought new attention to the island's tax system. A particular recent GQ article breaks down how a 2012 tax exemption is becoming increasingly popular with wealthy Americans.
The feature article will be available in the October issue. Joining us now is the writer of that feature, GQ contributor Jesse Barron. Good to see you, Jesse.
Good morning.
So the tax exemption is spelled out in something called Act 22. When did it go into effect and how does it work?
Act 22 is a tax law that was passed by Puerto Rico in 2012. And if you were not a resident of Puerto Rico when it passed, and you became one after, your investment income is untaxed. So it makes Puerto Rico the only place in the entire world where you can hold a U.S. passport and pay 0% tax on your personal income from dividends, interest, and capital gains.
Wow.
So that's what makes it so attractive to wealthy Americans who might have been looking for other tax havens, but they might have had to give up their citizenship in order to get it. But you do have to live in Puerto Rico for a certain period of time, or for much of the year you have to live in Puerto Rico to actually get this. But the article is really interesting because you sort of outline how people kind of play fast and loose or try to play fast and loose with the rules. But what I couldn't quite get from the article is whether or not Puerto Rico really benefits from this. These millions of dollars that are being not hidden, legally hidden in Puerto Rico. Does the island benefit in any way? Because we know that before the hurricane, the economy was falling apart.
That's right. I think a lot of people would say the island does benefit, certainly the people who passed the law, the government. And the reason they would say that is that 12,000 jobs have been created. When you have all of these wealthy people coming down, a lot of them live on a resort managed by the Ritz-Carlton. They go to pool parties, they fly helicopters to the airport, they hire housekeepers, they go to clubs, they hire housekeeping staff. So there's an argument to be made that those 12,000 jobs are really valuable. But there's also an argument to be made, and I get into this in the piece, that effectively this is a handout to the super wealthy in an island that already has a bankruptcy crisis and where unemployment hovers around 10%. So the 12,000 jobs seen against that figure seem kind of small.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Right.
12,000 doesn't seem like a lot.
No, but there must be also some folks that you spoke to there who may worry that this may mean that some Puerto Ricans in the state itself or the territory itself is getting taken advantage of.
Absolutely. I think that the issue really comes down to inequality. Puerto Rico, if it were a state, would be by far the poorest in the Union. And these 1,500 people who have moved down for the tax break, hedge fund managers, private equity firm owners, and so on, are among the richest in the existing 50 states. So the disparity is really acute. And although these are people who are free market people who believe that the government should be out of the economy, they're effectively down in Puerto Rico for what is a giant government experiment, which is that they can come down, live here without paying taxes, and wield more economic influence, buy more property, and be closer to the government. And I think the people who are concerned about the inequality that they've brought to the island point to those types of issues.
And when you say that some folks have tried to exploit this loophole, I mean, when you say you have to live in Puerto Rico or on Puerto Rico, does that mean just maintain a residence or does that mean physically be there?
He has a great example in his article about, and this guy didn't really pull this off, but you talk to a lawyer who works a lot with these sort of investors, if you want to say, and one of his clients is trying to say, listen, this is what I'll do. I'll fly in on my private plane and then I'll get on my boat and leave the island and they'll never know how long I've actually been on the island. It's fascinating.
1%, man. Tell you.
Yeah, so the opportunities to play fast and loose exist for sure. One of the most surprising provisions of this tax rule is that a single minute on the island of Puerto Rico counts as a full day as far as the IRS is concerned, which means that in order to make that 183 days that you need, you can touch down the Learjet at the airport, get a receipt at the airport Starbucks to prove that you were there, and continue on to the Virgin Islands for dinner. A lot of these people who are there, the 1,500, use an app called Footsteps, which is normally for parents to track children, and it tracks their GPS location, and then if they were ever audited, they can present it to the IRS and say, look, we were here for 183 days. But the issue is that the IRS, which is already so understaffed under Trump, can't possibly audit everyone down there. And so a lot of these people are very worried that if one or two audits come up badly, and the IRS sees that people are screwing around, there'll be a giant wave of audits and they'll uncover who knows what.
Wow.
Jesse Barron, it's a really interesting article. As I was reading it, it just seemed like the backdrop for a movie. If you can think of a movie script, that's a great backdrop for it. All these sort of swanky people by the pool talking about their money problems or lack of. Jesse Barron, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.